Hey, wonderful, lovely people, a pleasant evening to you. So, I bought the Weekend Star, and I'm seeing something here where it says Khago says no to female leaders. Sorry, that's Khago, a dancehall artist, especially from back in the day. And he says, dancehall artist Khago believes women are unfit for leadership, arguing that female leaders are easily manipulated by special interests and should stay out of positions of power. You know, um, he went on to say, and this is quoting him verbatim, woman no fi lead nothing. And the Bible tell you, woman fi lead the pot and the spoon in the kitchen. He further argued that female independence is a myth, insisting that men are naturally the providers and leaders. It says that Kaga insists that women should confine their roles to the household, using the Bible to justify his stance. He went on to say that the outspoken artist also linked what he sees as erosion of male leadership to the rise of the LGBTQ plus youth. Wow. Blaming women-led households for driving men away and leaving children without strong male figures. He said that many young men being raised today are what he calls hybrid men, neither fully masculine nor capable of traditional male leadership. And he warned that women's increasing control over households is fueling this shift. The man them where uno a wife up and raise a hybrid me call them. That are the type a man uno a raise, and that them a compete with uno, but them physically stronger, so uno woman can't do nothing about it. Is the mother them why the little boy them a turn gay or transgender? Because uno use the power of Babylon and run the man them out the house. Same way Satan used Eve, and the same thing happen now, he claimed. All right, so let me speak on something here. Incidentally, my beautiful people, I agree with Khago to a point. To a point, I agree with Khago. And if you look at the order of God, how he ordered, man was made, the male one, the biological sex, as in the male one was made first. And then the Bible talks about a part of him was taken out. We say rib. Some other scholars may say just a part of him was taken, and then the woman was fashioned out of that. So it's like, the man coming from God directly and the woman coming from the man, although it was God, inspired and done. And that same sort of triage that you're looking at here is the same sort of triage in leadership. So God being the overall head, the overseer, it's like you have God being the chairman, let us put it that way, and owner. And then you may have the man, the male one, being the CEO. And then you probably have the woman being a director or something of the sort. What Khago probably fails to understand is that all three entities that I've just mentioned are leaders. The God, male one, and female one. If you look in the book, in the New Testament, it talked about a very significant figure. Deborah is a significant figure in the Bible, known for her roles as a prophetess, judge, and leader of Israel. Her story is found primarily in Judges 4-5. So key aspects of Deborah, judge of Israel. She was the only female judge mentioned in the Bible. That's true. As a judge, she settled disputes and led the Israelites in a time before kings ruled Israel. You remember the time of Deborah, Samuel, and all of that, before you had people like King Saul and then King David coming on the stream. Prophetess, Deborah spoke God's words to the people, offering guidance and revealing his will. Military leader, so we notice judge, prophetess. These are, almost diametrically different, but seriously powerful roles to hold. And then a military leader. She summoned Barak, not Obama, obviously, a military commander, and told him that God commanded him to lead an army against Sisera, the commander of the Canaanite army. Barak agreed but insisted Deborah go with him, which she did. Victory and song. The Israelites defeated Sisera's army, and the victory celebrated in Judges 5, known as the Song of Deborah or Deborah. The poetic chapter is one of the oldest parts of the Bible and praises God's deliverance and the courage of Israel's leaders and people. Legacy. Deborah stands out as a strong female leader in a patriarchal society celebrated for her wisdom, courage, and faith. So I suppose Khago kind of missed that particular, section of the Bible with a female leader called Deborah. And if you thought about even Esther, you know what I mean? Esther said, let us go on this 3-day fast. I will then approach the king because I am here. She had to lead a cause so that not only her cousin Mordecai would not have been killed, but Haman's plans would have been thwarted and that her people would have been made free while she became queen. Being a queen is not a peasant or a peasantry role. It is a leadership role, even though it may be secondary to the king. So therefore, the reality that I'm putting forward to you is this. And remember Queen Vashti in the days of Solomon. We can think of even Phoebe in the New Testament. She was a wealthy woman who contributed to the many missions of Paul, Saul who became Paul. And we think of Ruth, we can go on and on. What I will say, why I say I partly agree, these are specially hand-picked women. And to be honest with you, men, many of you have actually abandoned your role, sometimes not wittingly, not necessarily deliberately. If we come in more postmodern world, a lot of the men went to war and they died. The women were sometimes forced to go out and work, and that gave rise to some of the things that we're seeing in today's world. Some of you have been lazy. You have failed to take up your role. You have failed. We're not talking about the fathers who were pushed aside by the mothers because the mothers were angry with them for not taking them or not marrying them or not being with them. But those who have categorically abandoned the role. I remember watching a podcast and listening to some men, and the one gentleman was speaking. He says, let me tell you something. When we leave the women, we leave the children too, whether the children are ours or not. We leave. There is no staying. So that actually, kind of dispels some of what Khago was saying when he mentioned driving men away. They have actually driven themselves away in many, many instances. And as Les Brown says, with the number of men who have failed to be fathers, can you imagine if the women were to do the same? The children would have been starved unto death. So, but again, as it relates to women being in, like, leading the men and being in this patriarchal world and really having these top positions, to be honest, in my scheme of thinking, these women ought to be specially picked by God. Because here we see Deborah, and there were other women, of old, who was a judge, who was a prophetess, who was a military leader, and so on. So it therefore tells a story that women can lead. In the majority, I don't know if that is because maybe you don't have many women who are emotionally intelligent. You do have many men who are not emotionally intelligent. However, because of the kind of role that men play automatically and biologically, men are women. They always say men are from Mars, women are from Venus. So men and women process a lot of things differently. Some things are universally common, that we will agree to. And they say women use more of the left side of the brain, which is a creative and dynamic and flamboyant side, while men use a more logical side to deal with things. You know what I mean? And that is why we had the doubt in Thomas. Unless I see it, I won't believe it. Sometimes women will believe it without seeing it. And that's one of the strengths in women. But you do have emotionally intelligent women who are balanced thinking, where their emotions don't run all over the place and they get in their feelings and act on that, as opposed to dealing with these things logically and the right way. You do have women who can do it. So I slightly disagree with Khago on that, but I do agree with him to some extent, because there are some women leaders that people have experienced, and they are worse than Cruella and Ursula. Guys, you know what to do with TikTok and YouTube. Subscribe. Give me one of those likes.